All right, this is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group with your end of day recap for Monday. And just looking at a couple names after the close today that reported. Twilio up nice, up around $34. So, if you kind of look at the chart for Twilio, kind of, back to this range of where it got before. So I really think around like $35, I think would be a clean move higher. Maybe watch for a little bit of continuation as it looks pretty good after the close today. So good numbers. CBS also looked like they had decent numbers as well. Look at that VPOC tagged up here, but I think pretty good results. Just to kind of sum up today from Monday was a nice kind of grinding higher day. A little bit, I would say, it kind of broke the streak of what we saw last week, especially in the Qs or in Nasdaq shares. A lot of selling. If we go to Nasdaq, just to kind of look back from last week, looks like there was some definite selling programs that kind of, definitely surfaced in the beginning of the day. A couple days last week. You could see it here. You could see it here. So we didn't have that today, and a nice grind higher. We really haven't seen a close on the highs in the Qs or in Nasdaq in a while. We've seen this. So, a lot of chop the last couple of weeks. And if you've kind of been just hanging in there the last couple of weeks, this is what earnings season is about. It's about chop and a little bit of digestion in some names. My theory, listen, there's a lot of good names that had a lot of good results this earnings season. And the fact that names didn't rally after, a lot of some names did, Apple and Netflix were really nice after earnings, but a lot of other names did not rally after earnings. And I think that's just, I'm not sure, I don't think that that's a bearish signal. I think some people are jumping to conclusions and saying, oh, wow, if, names can't go up on these positive earnings, that's not a good sign. Could be a good sign. I think I mean, it could be a bad sign, but I think it's when you look at the price of what a lot of names did going into earnings, they really ran up pretty hard. You could look at, for instance, what do you think is going to happen with some of these China internet names that were that have just been up huge? When they report, I wouldn't be surprised if they fizzle, just like what we've seen with a lot of U.S. companies too. I mean, this KWEB ETF is just out of control. Up another 2.7%, new 52-week high, and just this thing just continues to roll. If you look at the performance inside of this ETF, it is just unbelievable. I see a lot of people talking about breakouts. I mean, look at this thing, Beta, up 17% today on a clear breakout. So big move. This is a name that reports earnings very soon. I think next week they report, but they're now just getting out of this base. So, could be a lot of upside here if it kind of pulls back a little bit after earnings. Might be nice. Another name that I'm watching is NTES, which we've seen some call buying in here and there. They report this week. If you go back to this list of just names that just crushed it today, WB. So a lot of these names they have not gotten back to. This one might be a little bit different, but just huge day. But there's a few of these names that have not gotten back to. Just like I was looking at the BITA, but I mean it's very rare when you see 10 names in an ETF that are up over 3%. So just really strong across the board for this group. So names that report this week. Let's see if I can find this very quickly. Names that report this week. WUBA, NTES, Beta does report this week. These should all be reporting. What is this, Wednesday, I guess? Sina, WB. I mean, some of these names look like outright breakouts. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how. I might be looking at to play one or two names. One name that I'm also looking at that doesn't report in a couple weeks is BZUN. BZUN is a lower price stock, comparative, not valuation, but price. I think it needs to get above this. JD.com, another huge day today. Um, this name has just been on. Oops, that's the wrong symbol. I was like, that doesn't look right. So 52-week high for JD.com. This has been a big name that we've been talking about. So I could spend this whole video talking about the Chinese internet's names. I think this ETF is now up what is it up 50% at this point? year to date. Definitely, I would say probably one of the best performing ETFs. Yeah, up 56% at this point year to date. So amazing how well this group has performed. Okay, so to get away from this group, which I get distracted with because just huge momentum, right? Steel names really nicely. Iron ore was up overnight again, so nice move in iron ore. I've been along the SLX ETF for a couple weeks now, so back to where it was. See if it can break out and push higher. So steel names did very well today. Solar names up 2% again, so nice. I am long for solar. I took half the position off on earnings and didn't add it back. Maybe I decide to do that here, as the name has kind of come off of overbought levels, almost back into overbought territory, but not yet. So I only have half a position on right now. And then semis, everybody's been saying, probably me included, that this group got a little bit tired, I would say, especially after earnings. Some names just kind of fizzled, using that word again. But real nice performance today. ON Semiconductor had good earnings and got a nice upgrade as well after they reported earnings. So really nice to see this group come back here a bit. On the 50-day moving average has been a great indicator for this ETF, but really nice to see this finish basically on the highs of the day, up 1.8%. That helped me in a couple of my positions. I actually started two new positions last week in semis. Not a group that I kind of completely went flat on, but ASML, which we saw some call buying on Thursday, I believe it was. So took part of the position off today. The other name that I got long last week when we saw a little bit of call buying was MRVL. This name didn't really act great today, but still up almost 1%. Nvidia, helped by what's going on with Bitcoin, but up to 172. This name, is probably, and it looks like it's already doing it, running into earnings. I did actually also get a little bit of long AMD today. I think some of these names that have had really good earnings and have been sitting back into support, I think are a great place to get involved. So I actually bought some shares outright rather than even mess with the options. Again, $13 stock. I think that's perfectly reasonable. XLP consumers. I'm just looking on what names performed pretty well today. XLP consumer staples. This I talked about this. In the weekend newsletter, how there was $1 billion that was taken out of consumer staples and rotated into industrials via XLI. And you could see the volume here. I don't have my sheet up that has the outflows, but $1 billion came out of this ETF last week. We saw some call buying in PG, which I put on a small position. They came in a couple times for Procter and Gamble, which is the biggest weight in XLP. So this name did okay last week, considering that it was hit pretty hard with a lot of selling pressure. So PG, I would say one of the top three trades for today. Like I said, they came in twice, SEP 92s and SEP 97.5 calls. I kind of went in the middle of this, and what did I do? I did the what did I do? I did the PG October 95 calls to make it a little bit more reasonable. Small position for that one. The other nice trade that we saw was probably one of the first ones of the day. JCI, which is underneath the 200-day moving average. I did not take this trade. I just saw resistance ahead at 40.17, but pretty nice looking trade for JCI. And I think this one they may have came in twice as well. You can see August and September calls, two different strikes in August, but the September is what caught my eye earlier. And then, I talked about the nice outperformance in the Qs. The S&P continued to only, move very, very lightly or very very much in a narrow range. Only up 19 basis points were the SPYs. And again, if you look at the energy names, remember, energy is in the S&P. It's not a huge weight, but XLE now looks like it's headed back below the 50-day moving average, so down 76 basis points. But OIH was down 2.4%. The oil services ETF, so almost back to the 52-week low in OIH. XOP was another one that got smoked. Um, so resuming, you have to be very careful with this energy trade. I know a lot of people on Twitter are talking about there was call buying in a couple energy names. I would just, it just doesn't appeal to me on these names in downtrends. Maybe for day trade, you could try to play these names, but once XLE got kind of stalled out here last week, I did try a long XLE trade about a week ago, and I noticed I got right out of it once it fell into value. So and it was a good indicator too to see these long wicks on here. But to me, there's just better places to be that have more momentum. I think people just like to. It becomes mental, a mental thing. They like to call bottoms, just like you see people all over the place trying to call tops right now. Um, I would rather not. I'd rather, here, I think, first of all, it's below the 200-day moving average. But if you wanted to play a move from the 50 to maybe the 100-day moving average, so be it. But the thing, you don't want to be, at least I want to be in this very quickly if it starts to turn, which it did, and I got out very quickly. The banks also erased some of their move. The banks were very strong on Friday. KBE ETF. So another reason why S&P only up 19 basis points. The banks down 60 basis points. XLF down just a touch, but kind of wiped out some of those gains depending on which ETF you look at or which stock you look at. KRE is actually lower than it was on Friday, so down 60 basis points. So another short-lived bounce, I would say, for this group. So we'll keep an eye on. Goldman had a lot of calls on Friday. Goldman looks pretty good. Managed to close just about close to the highs. So it looks like the call buying was, if you follow call buying, there was a lot of calls that went up on Friday in Goldman. So nice continued move there. There's 18,000 of those SEP 250s. Morgan Stanley also saw a little bit of light call buying as well. This name looks like it didn't make a 52-week high today, but it did on Friday. And then the gold miners were down again. Both gold and bonds were kind of non-events for the day. As I talked about in the beginning of the day, just a lot of chop in those two areas. Trendless right now, I would say bonds and gold. So that's it for today's market recap. Just a final list that you could see. A lot of chippy trades today, a lot of weekly stuff. Facebook, we saw Facebook calls last week. Facebook calls again today. So really, really nice play in the trading room today in Facebook. A couple other momentum names today. I think there was a little bit of Netflix call buying as well. A couple other things that caught my eye. Nvidia, which is a tough play right now because the options are more expensive because they report earnings this week. Stay caught my eye. Some calls going up in that name. More charter activity. Some Teva dip buying. This name Teva is a couple people tried to play a bounce for this thing today. I mean, the RSI is down to an 11. So really, really smoked from $31 down to 18. So there was some January call buying that we saw today in the room. So that's it. We'll end it here. See you back in the trading room bright and early tomorrow morning, Tuesday. Have a great night.